Welcome to our conference and hello to everyone who is joining us. I'm Maren Deepwell, and as ALSA Chief Executive, it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you our co-chair team. Now, this is literally a world first. Never before have the OER and domains conferences come together for one very special event that we're hoping to bring together this week with you and celebrate all things open education. Now, because we're not meeting in person, we can't have a hushed auditorium, the lights dimmed, and we can't hear all of you watching and joining into this event as you put your hands together to give our co-chairs a warm welcome. So with a little trickery, we have come up with a different way of welcoming our co-chairs on stage, but I'd still like to invite you to put your hands together for what is a co-chair team like no one else before.
We're here!
Woo!
Hey.
We made it!
It's a long time
brilliant.
coming.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning from Scotland.
Yeah, I'm from Yorkshire in the north of England. Bit grey here.
Good morning from Trento, Italy.
Ooh.
And I guess good morning, a very early morning from the East Coast in Jacksonville, Florida.
Good morning from Scotland too.
So I think we wanted to start with quick introductions. So I'll get that started. I'm Jim Groom. I work with Reclaim Hosting, and it is a distinct pleasure to work with these co-chairs and the all team to bring you Domains21, OER by Domains. I got a little branding problem there, OER by Domains21. So thank you all for coming.
Likewise. So my name is Louise Drum. I work at Edinburgh Napier University, and I am on the OER side of this co-chair panel, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to OER Domains21. And it's a little bit of sadness for me that we're not welcoming you to Scotland itself, but there's a little bit of Scotland coming out to all of you right now. So you're all very, very welcome indeed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Hanks. I'm the Director of Operations at Reclaim Hosting, and I am happy, so thankful, and so excited for the next few days. So thank you all for joining us, and really stoked to get started.
Hi there, I'm Joe Wilson. At the moment, I'm Head of Digital Skills at City of Glasgow College, but I've spent a career around vocational, educational technology and campaigning for more openness. So it's great to welcome you to OER21.
And I'm Lou Mycroft. I am a nomad. I build communities of people, increasingly online. And my playground is English further education. So I'm absolutely delighted to see such a great presence here today and looking forward to learning loads and getting to know more people. And I'm wearing the same top, which is a little bit embarrassing.
Okay. I think, Maren, can we move to the next slide? There we go. Okay.
So it's great to welcome you all, and we've got 250 participants from 18 different countries, and we've come a long way since OER 10 at the University of Cambridge. I've been privileged to get along to all of the different OER conferences, so it's great to see this movement moving. And what I'd like you to do, you're using all of the technology, find the Discord channel and give us a national flag or a symbol or something that reflects where you're from.
Yeah. See, it looks like Jim is having some issues with his.
And again, just that bit of just mentioning all our sponsors and welcoming our scholars too. So again, in the spirit of openness, it's great to be able to really offer free places to people in the spirit of openness.
Yeah, I'd like to second that and say, as somebody who benefited from taking a scholarship place in OER a few years ago, that the scholars are a very important part of this conference, and you're more than welcome here, and we're delighted to have you.
Oh, wow, look at this amazing map. This lifts my heart that we have a special welcome to further education and schools participants. We're all here as equal thinkers. We're all here as learners to learn. And I really appreciate how we have been able to push the message out into different parts of education. This is a space that has no silos. Well, it might do, but we're here to push through the walls of them and all learn together. So I am particularly looking forward to welcoming people who maybe are here for the first time, like me. This is my first OER. I'm a bit nervous. So if you are too, then we're good company for each other. Next slide, please. Thank you.
So one of the cool elements of OER by Domains21 is this remixer machine where you can actually create on the fly your own conference lanyard badge. Brian Mathers helped us create this, and it's magic. You can also use it to scroll and see all the amazing people who are joining us over the next few days. So please take the time. You'll see the link below. Make a badge and share it using, here we go, right? I think I'm ready. What are we going to use to share it? How are we going to share it? Hashtags. Hashtag like and subscribe for more.
Yeah, so I believe the hashtags, I'm not sure if that slide is there, but the hashtags are OERxDomains21, or there's also Domains21, and I think also another one as well, OER21. So please use those as you are sharing on your social media platforms. And that probably brings us to the next slide here, which are, it's kind of talking about the different ways that you can contribute to this conference and interact with this conference. There are quite a few platforms that we're using just to bring everything together. But first and foremost, if nothing else, going to the conference display site is going to be your one-stop shop. So that is at OERxDomains21.org. And this is just, I'm so over the moon with how this has come together as sort of this TV guide of sessions and presentations and recordings and all of the above. So you can click on a specific link. It's going to open up an abstract and get you going right then and there. So all of the chats are going to be embedded right on this page as well. So when we're streaming to YouTube like we are now, those chats are going to be embedded right in the YouTube sidebar on the conference display site. And if there are presentations or sessions happening that are recorded for Domains21, those are going to have the Discord channels that are embedded right there as well. So next slide, please. So these are going to just be your little screenshots from the help page that sort of describe in a bit more detail about how we're using YouTube Live, how we're using Discord. So please, if you are interested in sort of engaging in a deeper level or a second level of the conference, join our Discord channel, introduce yourself, be a part of those other conversations happening in hallway chats. Yesterday, karaoke went on for quite a while, and it was a treat to enjoy. The hashtag, you know, that's going to bring in all of the Twitter conversation. So there's a lot of buzz and conversations happening in Discord. That's just been really fun to watch already, and the conference is just now beginning. So definitely recommend heading over there. And then, of course, if you do need help throughout this conference, we do realize that this is a virtual event, which means things, you know, could break, or you could lose a password, or whatever that may be. Not an issue. We have a whole help site. It's on the conference display site, and you can go to the menu and click help, It's also by OERxDomains21.org/help. And that's just going to bring you through, give you a greater overview of how this conference is running, and also links out to helpful tutorials. There's another Discord invite link there as well once you're logged in. And of course, if you want to chat with someone directly beyond just reading this help page, we of course have an email available as well that's listed on the help site, and then of course the Discord help desk channel, which our staff is watching pretty regularly. So the help is there. Please reach out if you have any questions. Next slide, please.
I was going to make my giraffe joke. So this is actually the sponsors who actually helped us bring this conference to you. So this is a slide to acknowledge them supporting us, and hopefully in turn you can support them. So thank you very much to all our sponsors. I'll start this because I think we do have time. I am looking forward to all of the time and energy people from across the globe, as we learned, put into actually making this conference what it is. And I mean the people who are presenting, who are sharing. It's been a tough year. Time has been a commodity. So I just want to thank them all. And I am really looking forward to, it's a full schedule. Take the time. And the beauty of it is anything you might miss will be immediately recorded and available for you after the conference. So please take it and show some appreciation for all the work these people have done. It's amazing. So great.
I'll jump in next and say I'm just most looking forward to seeing the connections made across OER and domains, but also between people, the conversations that are going to happen. And I think the beauty of Discord is that you don't have to jump into everything, but you can see there's things going on. There is a buzz, and to use that, you know, just that would be the one thing. Just jump in where you can, where you've got the headspace to do, and do some listening, do some deep listening.
And I'm looking forward to all the sharing that's going to go on, and that might just be sharing problems. It might be sharing good ideas. It might be sharing visions of the future. But that's what makes openness work: sharing.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it being like a festival. You know, I miss festivals so much. And, you know, when you sort of stumble for a sit down in a quiet tent and then something happens that blows your mind, it's all the stuff that I don't even understand what the abstract is about, that I am really looking forward to dropping into and taking my thinking off in a whole other direction. And then what's really important for me is that it is a collective community experience. So I want to be able to take that to Discord, take that to Twitter, and chat with people I've never met before. I'm so excited about that. What about you, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm just super excited. I think, you know, having the two teams, you know, the alt team, OER, and then we've got this domains team, and we've just sort of joined forces. We're bringing all of our audiences together under one roof. And so I'm just really excited for the opportunity to meet new folks, to also engage with folks that I've seen in previous conferences. And then what's special about this conference for me, using Discord, having something like the resources channel where, you know, maybe in an in-person conferences, I'm not able to actually attend all sessions. It's just not physically possible. And so I miss out on a lot of that content for the sessions that I'm not a part of. And so to see people sharing their resources and sessions that I haven't yet watched, and then I can go back, and it's really nice to have all of that content right there. Especially being in different time zones, knowing that I can go back and watch things that I haven't seen yet. So super stoked just to have all of the content at my fingertips. I'm really looking forward to the next 2 days.
We'd love to know what you're looking forward to. So use the comments, and we are just about 30 seconds out from our opening introduction, which I have to say I think was amazing. We did an amazing job.
Hi there. I'm Joe Wilson. I'm going to chair the opening plenary of the conference. So all very exciting. I'm looking forward to introducing to you Tutaleni, who's an associate professor of educational technology and a director of emerging technology at the Creative Research Lab in the College of Education and Human Sciences at Oklahoma State University. Dr. Orna Farrell, who's an assistant professor specialising in online and blended education in Dublin City University. Nicolas Garcia, much closer to home, who's currently the student president at City of Glasgow College. And Catherine Stihler, OBE, who's the CEO of Creative Commons. And she's been an international champion for openness as a legislator and a practitioner for over 20 years. So I'd like you all to put your hands together and welcome our speakers, please.
Thank you.
And I hear sniggering in the background. Is that because of? Oh, you're all there. Do you know what? I'm busy looking at two different screens. So, welcome to you all, and for a couple of you getting to see me for the first time. So welcome. And really, what I'm going to do is really just move through the questions that we were chatting about. So, and I'll actually start. Tutaleni, I'll start with you. And what I'm going to come to you each in turn. What has the past year been like for you in your role, Tutaleni?
Wow. First, thank you so much for the opportunity to join the conversation. It's great to be here, and it's great to be on this panel. The past year I'm struggling to find words to explain it. It's been incredibly tough. It's been emotionally draining, awe-inducing, and at the same time, very inspirational. It has been all of that because of the things that, me as an individual have had to face, and the things that the people in my communities have had to face, my colleagues, my students. It's been a very challenging year, but it has also been fantastic in terms of the humaneness that I have encountered throughout the various communities.
And Orna, the same question to you. What's the past year been like for you in your role?
Again, it's hard to find words for the last year. It's been like 10 years in one, but I suppose in a couple of phrases, mental. It's been a huge juggling act personally between homeschooling and children and working, but also I suppose I changed roles midway through the pandemic as well. So at the very start, I was chair of an online program, and also I was running a nice project called #OpenTeach. And our program, our online course, started a week after we were sent home. So OpenTeach was around helping people learn how to teach online. So it was meant to be a kind of a small open course. We were expecting about 100 participants. And because of the timing, it ended up being a very big course of about 450. That was the start of the pandemic for me, working with many colleagues who were really keen to upscale and cope with the change to online teaching or emergency remote teaching. And then at the same time for my program, even though it was a fully online program, our assessments had still been largely campus-based. So there was a huge piece of work there, working with my colleagues in DCU around changing assessments, in a short space of time, but also trying to make assessments that were still flexible and student-friendly, and also dealing with a lot of student queries and problems and illness, and trying to reassure students that we would do our best to be there for them and help them. So, I mean, that involved things like blanket extensions, huge changes to the college rules were put through in a short space of time. And then after all that, in the middle of the summer, I took on a new role leading a new learning design unit called the Digital Learning Design Unit, which was created at DCU with a team of 10 originally to support academic staff teaching online and learning design. So I'm in that role still, and that in itself has been a great new challenge. I have a fantastic team, and we've worked at a serious pace with a lot of lectures. And I think we've had a positive impact on the institution. So that's been my year so far. As I said, it feels like a decade.
I think a lot of us are like that. And Nicolas, what's the past year been like for you in your role as a student president?
Yes, so I started my role in July 2020. And yeah, it was just when the restrictions from the first lockdown started to ease. So my background, I was born in Uruguay, and yeah, so I've been already on 3 major economic crises: Uruguay 2002, the Great Recession, Spanish recession in 2008, and this is the first time that I'm facing a crisis as an adult and with a full-time job. So for me as a student president, I'm the only full-time student representing 30,000 students in the middle of a pandemic. So the pressure has always been very, very high. But yes, for example, I won the elections with a purely green manifesto, environmental manifesto, just before the pandemic. And I had, in any crisis, we need to try to read the context we live in and shift our focus if necessary. So what I did this year, one of the decisions I took, was not only to focus on environment, but also focus on mental health and on the digital transformation, because we're going through a huge digital transformation in my college. And yeah, that's the reason I'm here today. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Nicolas. And Catherine, how's your role changed in the past year?
So I actually took on the role at Creative Commons in the last year. So I've not met my team, I've not met my board. So it's been an interesting experience, but also a wonderful one. And I'm just thinking about what Nicolas just said, Joe, because I just think, how hard has it been for being a student president in this year? And I share that, Nicolas, because I was the president of my Students' Association back a long while ago. So I really feel for you. And I think what presidents of Students' Associations have done this year to try and help students has been quite incredible. But if I also reflect on what Orna said about how it just feels it's like time has been really weird. That, our weeks Fridays can come along really quickly. Yeah, you feel it's a long time. And I think that's something I've been kind of reflecting on, plus having my kids who have now gone back to school in Scotland. And so, having homeschooling on top of that and trying to balance all of those family and work has been an experience, and one which I certainly have learned a lot about myself, particularly around the words of patience and being able to multitask. But it's been a great privilege to take on the role at Creative Commons, and we've managed to get, even with all our restrictions, to get our new strategy through, which is about better sharing and really focusing on our work on advocacy, on innovation and on capacity building. So it's been a real experience, a real joy as well, but a lot of learning.
Thanks, Catherine, for that. What I'm doing, I'm going to go back round and I'm going to come back to Tutaleni. So in terms of open education, what's helped give you some joy or shown care this year? What are the things that have excited you?
The one thing that has really excited me is, I think there's been a transformation from my interactions with my it feels odd calling them colleagues, but they're really more like friends in the open community. Through the past year, there's almost been a transformation from the traditional sense and focus of open to what I don't have the words for it, but I can almost just call it as open humaneness. The people in this community, for me, have been also the one has been the most supportive. They have been very open with their conversation, open in the advocacy for students. It's usually the people who, for me in my community, who are also interested in open, who are advocating for just a gentleness with which we are treating each other, with which we are treating students. You're more likely to hear someone who is from an open community pushing back at this idea that when students are online, they have to have their cameras on, or that we have to focus more on figuring out whether students are not cheating on their exams. There was a bit more of a supportiveness from this community. There was a sense of openness with the conversations that we're having. People are sharing what's happening in their life, their struggles, and so forth. And we were sharing a lot of solutions that are to the challenges that we're having in our lives. And there was just really an openness of engagement. Or someone say, you know what, no, I'm not able to do this because I have this many things going on. So although it has been a challenging year, for me, what has brought me joy is that it didn't feel as alone as it would have. And perhaps I'm just biased because I'm a member of community. I think it is also from this community that I have sourced support and received it for the most part.
That's a lovely statement, and I've got all of these challenges too about academics demanding everybody to switch their cameras on and doing all of these kind of things, and not thinking about learners. Orna, how about you? What for you in open education has helped bring some joy to you?
I think I suppose one of the positives of the pandemic, if there is any, is that it kind of makes you reflect on what's important to you. And what's important to me is people and community. And I'm very lucky to be part of a number of different open communities and within my team as well. And I've gained a lot of support and resources and help. And I've endeavored to be the same, to put out the helping hand to those who ask for it. One of the nicest communities that I'm involved in there was an event last year, Gasta Goes Global, and that's a fantastic Irish EdTech community and global EdTech community as well. But I really believe in particularly Maha Bali's ideas around the pedagogy of care and how we can show care in different ways, and they can be small ways like how you design your course, or requesting cameras off, cameras on. But she had a nice blog post quite recently about teachers caring for teachers as well, because I think like this pandemic has been very hard for students, but it's been very hard for teachers or academics or learning technologists as well. And we have to protect our own well-being too. And I think that message is coming through quite strongly in the different groups I'm involved in. Also, I think collaboration has brought me joy. I mean, I love working with other people, and I worked on some great projects this year, despite the pandemic. Open Teach is one example, but another really local one, working with a lovely group of colleagues from the library and from the Open Education unit in DCU and my own unit on a little project called Go Open, which is a beginner's guide to open education, trying to encourage, people in our own community, in the DCU community, to get involved in open. So that's been a lovely project as well. So, for me, the key thing has been community and collaboration, and trying to put out a helping hand.
Well, that's great. And I suppose one of the things that I've always benefited from is the alt community, the Association of Learning Technology, who are always my sounding board when I panic about things. And Nicolas, as a student president, how is open education, or what are the joyful things that you've seen this year, Nicolas?
Yes, so I think that the thing that brought me the most of the joy has been, so with the pandemic, online spaces have become the only safe space where people can freely communicate and safely. So back in September, I created an environmental society open to all students, and this environmental society has been the thing that brought me the joy the most, and not only to me but also to the rest of members. And the reason for this is because this has been a space where students could meet and hang out, chat, communicate, and build relationship with other students, which is very, very important. And indeed, it's something that has come up in our conversation with the students and in our surveys constantly. So students have the need to communicate, to build relationships with mainly, more importantly, with their classmates, to support each other, to discuss coursework. And actually, I cannot express enough how important is this peer support, because in a face-to-face environment, we have that need, and in an online environment, we still have that need. It's just that it needs to be met online. So yes, I think that those non-informal online spaces where to communicate freely have been the thing that has brought me the most of the joy this year.
Well, that's good to hear. And actually, I think that whole bit about informal learning in this world where we're all zooming and we're all broadcasting to people, allowing the people to actually chat to each other and interact informally is a bit I think we've all been missing, Nicolas. So that's a very good point. And Catherine, for you, where's open education and what's shown you some joy this year?
Well, I think it's actually some of the stories about the successes where open education has stepped up in terms of the pandemic. And I think, Orna, you touched upon that about all the people that joined your programme. But I remember talking, I think it was to Lorna, about a programme at Edinburgh where, you know, this training event had allowed people to be trained to help those that were affected by COVID. And it's those inspiring stories that I think all of you have about how you've made a difference in an extraordinary time but also an extraordinary time where globally we've all been touched by it. And I thought it's been interesting joining an international team at Creative Commons, where, you know, we've all been touched by it, we're all impacted by it, we're working together in extraordinary times to still make a difference. And I think that's something I'm certainly reflecting on. I think the other aspect has been where we've been trying to do work, and this has been led by the head of Open Education, Director of Open Education at Creative Commons, by Dr. Cable Green, on the UNESCO Open Education Declaration of what we can do at that highest level to push governments to ensure that this is in the agenda, and that's truly exciting as well. But I do think this thing about thinking about care, looking after each other, and also perhaps, and I don't know if others have experienced this, but when you're doing this virtual and on screens and all of this all the time, there is something about how we've got to all intentionally listen to one another and actually truly listen. And that's quite empowering in terms of the change making we all want to see. So there's just so many levels of that question, Joe, I could go into, but I think that for me, it's been working with my team, having the impact, and also trying to make that change in extraordinary. I think, Tutaleni, you mentioned that about your students, about how, you know, it's an extraordinary moment that we're all going through, but somehow we're going through this, you know, it's not that one bit's affected and we're all in this, and we've got to learn from that.
So that is super. And I suppose I wouldn't be me if I didn't mention how much we're looking forward to working with Creative Commons and in driving forward the open agenda in Scotland through Open Scot and the other developments we've got in train there. It's just it's sometimes it's crises that bring super opportunities to remind people about how we should be working anyway. Really.
Yes.
Tutaleni, for you, what's the biggest issue we need to tackle? Tutaleni, what's the biggest issue we need to tackle?
I think it will help if I unmute myself. That you always need to have that one person who forgets to unmute themselves in a panel. I think for me, one of the biggest issues we need to tackle is the issue of representation and equity. The challenge is that the more a community becomes supportive, the more it becomes necessary to guard against developing an echo chamber. The more it becomes necessary to guard against being so comfortable with being familiar with those that are in the room that we forget to open the door for those who still need to get into the conversation, or to open up our circle so that it gets bigger. So I think we still need to be working more on being inclusive. For example, I had the joy of addressing a conference at the University of Nigeria yesterday, and I was talking about my concept of learning without borders and talking about issues of open pedagogy, when someone asked the question and said, well, do you think it's possible to engage in open pedagogy at our university? And the question really, what the person was asking about, and he said, well, do you think open pedagogy is for us? And for me, that's sort of the issues that signal to me that we need to do a better job of being more inclusive, when someone can ask the question and say, well, no, this is not for us, this is from somebody else. So we need to be a little bit more open in who's participating in this conversation. I think open still is very much reliant on some sort of technology, often dependent on the internet, which means then we also need to start dealing with issues of the digital divide, because not everybody can access certain things. So while we are advocating for openness and for access, we really also need to think about who is not able to access this conversation, these resources that we're advocating for. I often say that, if you think about in terms of just textbooks as an example of open resources, often the same people who are writing $100 textbooks are now the same people that are writing the freely available educational resources. So then we need to ask ourselves, has that really changed anything? Has that really contributed to openness? Because who is writing and for whom are they writing? Who's telling the stories and for whom are they telling those stories? So we need to also start thinking about, when is it necessary for us to speak, and when is it necessary for us to pass the mic and invite somebody else to be able to tell their story. So I think for me, really the issue is about needing to do a whole lot more about representation and equity.
Wow, I think you're absolutely right. That's really deep and meaningful, and I think actually how you opened your presentation about having deeper understanding for people all links together so well. So Orna, what do you think is the biggest issue we need to tackle?
Well, I was thinking about it on a kind of a broader societal level. I think access, I mean, Tutaleni has mentioned some of the things I was thinking about talking about, so I'll try not to repeat his points. But I think access on a higher level, so removing barriers, financial barriers, cost, more flexible. In Ireland, cost is a huge factor for students with fees. And also part-time students or those studying flexibly are discriminated against in terms of accessing state funding support. So I think actually on a structural level, we need to work on those structural access points. And also as the issues of the digital divide, which have really been highlighted by the pandemic. I mean, talking to students, especially in March and April, challenges around shared devices, stable broadband. Ireland has some very patchy broadband. We had a student a couple of years ago who used to have to drive to a library car park to use their broadband in order to go to an online tutorial. So those issues haven't gone away. And I think on even a more global level, I think the whole idea around access to information, paywalled journals, publishing in journals that are then locked away. I mean, it's clearly not in the public good or in the interests of knowledge sharing. So I think further work around informing people of these barriers, getting key stakeholders like libraries on board, who are very much on board. But also, I think, having especially worked on that recent project, the Go Open one, speaking to academics, there isn't a very strong awareness of open education in some parts of the academic community, certainly in Ireland. And as Tutaleni mentioned, we need to broaden the community out further. And we need to advocate more for open. Not that isn't already happening, but I think broadening the conversation, broadening the group further is definitely important. But I think without the fundamental access to higher education that people need in terms of cost, equity, all of that, socioeconomic circumstances, what's the point in having open knowledge if you can't actually get into university or can't afford to go?
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely, and that chimes as well. And I think probably now is quite a good time for Nicolas to give us the student sort of answer to that question. What, Nicolas, as a student president, what are you seeing the challenges as being?
Yeah, so I don't think that it's about a specific issue. I think it's more about us understanding the context and owning the responsibility to make sure that we establish all the learning that both COVID and lockdown has to bring us. And this is on our team level and our organization level. And well, there are two major trends that have been super accelerated with COVID-19. One is working from home. Working from home is not new, but we have the responsibility to make sure that we understand what is working from us, what is working when working from home and what is not, and make sure that we learn about it. And I think that we have learned that working from home has so many benefits for our work balance. We can be more productive, we can do more, we save time. But also, I think some of the things that I learned is that we are not human doings, we are human beings. And that translated on a team day-to-day basis. That means that, well, actually, in the last year, we have been from meeting to meeting, from item in the agenda to item in the agenda, and we haven't really connected with our team. And maybe a year ago, that wasn't an excuse because everything changed. But now a year has passed, and we need to start creating those informal spaces for our teams to communicate and to connect in an interpersonal level. And actually, some people might have some issue with this because they might think that this is a waste of time, but actually this is investment because we are not human doings, we are human beings. And this is something that, for example, I have learned from working from home that haven't worked for me. Another trend is about how technology can enhance our productivity. And we have learned that online learning is not a substitute of face-to-face learning. It's not. However, technology can be used on so many ways. And this is the reason that, for example, in my college, at City of Glasgow College, we started a process that really is a digital transformation from the first blended learning guidelines to the creation of a digital steering group that is looking at the new virtual learning environment. We are transitioning to a new virtual learning environment. We have been running some digital we have been running surveys and focus groups to gather feedback for the digital strategy that has been redesigned for the VLE requirements and the scope requirements for the new VLE. Yeah, so I guess that we need to be alert and we need to, the world has completely changed. So we don't need to know everything. We can find out together. And the approach that we have taken at City of Glasgow College is asking our primary user, that is a student. And another kind of case study as well that I can share with you is, for example, my college has created a digital transformation group for the future. And this digital transformation group will make sure that we are challenging and discussing and gathering feedback about our digital experience to make sure that we strategically invest on technology to improve the online experience of our staff and students. And I think that the last trend is about inequality. Inequality is not new, but since the beginning of the lockdown, we have seen how not only students, but also staff, they might not have the right Wi-Fi, they might not have the right equipment, the right software. And for example, to our students, that it's a very hard situation because they feel behind just for being poor. They cannot complete their tasks, their coursework, or maybe because they don't have the right Wi-Fi, they need to go through very huge technical issues to complete the most simple task. And I think that that's another thing that we learn. Technical issues have an emotional impact on people. And yeah, so I guess that some of the things that we learn is that we need to work with colleges and government to provide software, equipment, and internet to students who need it. Yeah, and I guess that the point I want to make in this question is we don't want to get back to normal. We want to get back to a better normal. So we need to make sure that we learn from the context we live in, and we implement and establish all this learning that both the COVID and lockdown have brought us.
That's super. I'm hoping everybody, I know particularly on the panel, I'm hoping you're all busy looking at the lovely comments that you're all getting and the nice feedback you're all getting from YouTube. I mean, it's a new experience for me too, using this technology today. But just all of your comments, all of what you've said so far is getting such nice endorsement from everybody. I'll come back to you, Nicolas. I know you've got something else you want to say, but Catherine, what about you? Where do you think that the challenges are for the future?
So I'm going to take something that Nicolas said, because it is striking, isn't it, that in terms of the inequality that we see in terms of that, we talk about a digital divide. I think it's actually a digital chasm. And we saw yesterday in Scotland the Nestor report about the data divide. And so I think it's interesting that we've got, the inequality of that is just being so highlighted. I keep thinking about, the model of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I remember seeing one model of that where underneath it all now is Wi-Fi. And I keep reflecting on that, because it is become, if you don't have access to Wi-Fi, if you don't have good access to the net, then you are excluded, and we have to think about how we can do that better. So that's one thought. The other thought, isn't it interesting that we've got that, but when it comes to equipment, it would appear that governments are much more, we get it when people don't have the laptop, the Chromebook, the computer. We need to make sure that people have access to that. There's something about that, there's almost a little disconnect. And then the disconnect more so when it comes to open education sometimes, that I think decision makers, we still have a job of work. And Joe, I hope you'll agree with me on this one, to really convince why it's important. And so I think over the next 5-10 years, that we will probably win the argument about equipment and making sure people have access to that. We can probably, people see the reason about accessing why and how we can do something about that. I think that the real argument we have to make to decision makers is why open education actually addresses all of the things that we care about in terms of tackling inequality, both locally and globally. And I really feel that this is the moment that the pandemic can illustrate that, but also that where we can take things forward, show solutions and evidence success with that. So, and back to, I think, Orna and Tutaleni, you were talking about bringing people on the journey. Maybe we have to articulate our ladder of engagement with people much more strongly, that we've got people on this call who are total advocates of what open education means and does, but we have to bring some people on a journey with us. And I think that's maybe the next challenge that we've got to face. Thanks, Joe.
And I'm now beginning to see some nice questions coming in. So I'm going to open this question up to all of you, and it's a question from Dr. Matt Smith. Really, it's that bit of what are the things the pandemic should be a catalyst for some changes that should have been made a long time ago. How do we need to ensure that the positives are kept? So what are the changes that should have been made a long time ago that we should now be embracing?
I'll go for that if you want, Joe.
Yeah.
I think one of the best one of the best outcomes I think has been changes around assessment. I think moving away from the traditional exam to more authentic, diverse assessment types, which probably would have taken decades to do, has been a really positive change. And talking to academics, using open resources, open practices, open pedagogy assignments, blog posts, video, and really interesting, diverse assessment types. And previously they would have just thrown people into an exam hall for 2 hours. So I think if that sticks, that would be a huge win for students and student learning.
I've probably got a follow-up question about how do we make it stick. I've still got lots of staff that are bursting to get back to the old bad world, and it's how to keep them on that trajectory that is the challenge. What about the rest of the panel? What are the other things that you see have changed that should really have changed a wee while ago?
I think our ability to use this kind of technology for having events and having that we don't have to travel. And I know that being together is important. Don't get me wrong about that. But this is possible. And Nicolas, you've mentioned environment. Well, if ever there's the most pressing problem we all face, it's the climate crisis. And therefore, how we do this, and clearly we've got to then think about how we power technology, environmentally and all of those things. But I do think that we can do things differently and we can work in this way. I think that hybrid model of doing things, in person, but also being able to do things remotely are just, and, when we're thinking about our climate footprint, that's going to be more and more important that we evidence that we're taking that seriously.
Well, that's good. And I suppose another question, I'm going to promote something here, is a question here from Helen Beetham. And Helen Beetham is saying, that we're learning about synchronous learning. Gosh, my question keeps jumping up and down. This is me and this technology. There it is. We're learning about synchronous learning and asynchronous, allowing more space for thought, reflection, careful response, alternative ideas, which I think is wonderful. And again, I don't know how Nicolas feels, but again, working across a college, it's been that balance of some lecturers want to Zoom for 3 hours, and you think, well, that's not very good for them, and it's certainly not very good for the students. But what about your reflections on that between synchronous and asynchronous? How's that helped staff, and how's that helped learners?
Sorry, Joe, is it a question for me?
It's a question for all of you, Nicolas, but okay. I'm happy if you'd like to take it.
I would love to, but I will need some clarification between synchronous and asynchronous.
So synchronous is what we're doing just now. So you have to do it in a particular space and time. And asynchronous allows you to go away and do domestic tasks and do other things and come back and look at it at a time that suits you.
I can come in with that if you like.
Yeah.
I think that we need to take the best from both. So for example, in my college now we are in the stage where we are opening the competition between the different VLE providers, and we have recruited 20 student volunteers to test the potential new VLEs, and we are doing it in a asynchronous way where students can complete the test at their own pace. And I think that this is very important, and more now in time of pandemic, because we are working from home. We have changed completely the way that we do things, and each person has different needs. So there are people who concentrate better during the nighttime. There are people who concentrate better during the weekends. For example, if you are a creative student, so creativity is something that you need to induce yourself, and you need to listen to yourself. So I think that that's a very good question. And my position would be that we need to make sure that we use both of them for the right purpose. And yeah.
Okay. What about everybody else? I mean, is the tyranny of the timetable something that affects your institution?
I can come in for this one. I think asynchronous personally is superior for the reasons that Helen has mentioned. It's much more flexible. People can think about their answers. It's better for students with disabilities. Like for a huge number of reasons. But what synchronous is good for is what we're doing right now, community building. So if you're using the approach for that, you know, community building, discussion, group work, fantastic. But if you're doing what Tony Bates calls old wine and new bottles, you're transferring the lecture from being, you know, a passive sitting in a lecture hall to a passive sitting in a Zoom room. You know, there's not huge value in that. And I have to say, this is one of the conversations I had most this year, is trying to encourage people, even just nudging them towards some asynchronous activity. So still a challenge, I suspect. And the pandemic has essentially been sponsored by Zoom. So I think that speaks for itself.
Okay.
If I could just add on to that, I think for me, one of the things that resulted from the present circumstances is that it's harder to privilege one over the other. I think what this time has shown us is that they all have their space. There are some people who thrive in being in the moment and really feeding off of each other, and there are some people who prefer that reflection. But there are some people who don't have a choice, right? So, for example, many people had to be turned into either into caregiver in unexpected situation, or many of us had to finally believe and understand that for many people who are in the workplace are present in multiple contexts at the same exact time. So now, you know, we normalize having, you know, pets running across the screen, kids screaming in the background, your partner coming in and say, hey, can I get this? Can I get that? And all of these type of things happening. So for me, I always thought the choice of either synchronous or asynchronous had a built-in sense of privilege to it, because it assumes that you can do one or the other. Sometimes you have no choice. And I think what the pandemic has shown us is that fluidity is really necessary. For me, when it started, it was very difficult when I was told that I have to teach the same class in person and online, you know, and provide all this opportunity for students. I was like, well, there's been times when I went to the classroom, stood in front of a camera to broadcast to students because it was supposed to be a live synchronous class, and no one showed up, right? The first, second, or third time I did that, I was kind of like, well, this is a bit hurtful, because now I'm the one who's standing there alone. It's kind of lonely, but then I kind of realized that no, that approach makes the learning process about me, not the student who needs this flexibility, need this synchronous and asynchronous option at the same exact time. So I think the pandemic did force us to kind of really explore whether this duality that we have specifically promoted in online learning is really useful anymore.
Well, that's absolutely super. Now we're actually into our last minute, you know, and again, it's been a pleasure. Orna, I think I've met you at a distance at other conferences, and Catherine, I know you, and obviously Nicholas and Tutaleni. It's a pleasure to have met you online, and I hope I can welcome you to Glasgow, and Orna and I can welcome you to Scotland at some point. And we're now into that last minute. Is there any final thoughts that any of you would like to give this global community that that are kind of invisible but appearing on our comment stream at the side in YouTube? So any brief last messages you would like to give to the OER open domains community.
I'm loving the setup though. I'm watching the Discord channel, I'm watching the YouTube comments. It's fantastic. It's as close to a real conference, you know, in-person conferences I've got to. So I'm really liking that.
Yeah. I think the setup is brilliant, and I just think keep doing what you're doing and let's work together to make the change we want to see.
I think I will probably steal from Nicolas. Nicolas, you said something that really has stuck with me in this session, is that we need to remember that we are human beings, not human doers. And human beings means that you have to be present in a lot of spaces. And it means that we have to recognize that people are present in those spaces, and we have to be forgiving, welcoming, and open to a lot of those multi-presence.
So thank you, thank you all for your contribution to the opening plenary to the conference. I hope you're all, and I'm giving you a round of applause too. I'm sure there'll be a round of applause going in the other bit. In terms of formalities, I think we're now into a break before the rest of the sessions. I hope all of you get to hang about, and I look forward to engaging with you in some of these other social channels over the next couple of days. And thank you so much. And we'll close the opening plenary session there. So round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nom nom nom.